My friends, what lays before you is the myriad knowledge of an unfathomable universe. Join our intrepid remembrancers as they explore the heresy as history. From deep within the farthest reaches of the great library of Tiska, we are the Heresy Grad School. So said the War Master in his wisdom. Go forth, my sons, and illuminate them.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to an episode of Heresy Grad School, where we cover heresy as history. And we have a very special guest tonight. We have our very own Jesse Irvin from the main cast, who's the main producer, to come and hang out and talk to us a little bit about Dark Angels and Xana. It's going to be fun.
Well, hello. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for all coming into my house, and it's been great.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's super cute that we're calling him the guest when we're at his house using his studio, his sound equipment.
This is true. Yep. We
It's
are
a
actually
hybrid
in
guest
the
situation.
depths of the Vengeful Spirit right now, so Studio A.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. And we get to enjoy the fancy intro.
I'm still running the soundboard.
So I think we're going to start off real quick with some housekeeping, right, Dave?
Yeah, so guys, welcome back. This is Lesson 5, so we're going to go over pages 67 to 70 in Book 6, Retribution. That'll take us from the wrath of the betrayed to the logic of survival. And so housekeeping, we've got a little bit to talk about here. Pat, could you let our listeners know what the results of our Patreon poll are? And for those of you not following along from home, which should be everybody, but the Patreon poll is something that we open up to our Patreons to kind of let us know every once in a while where to go with the next cast. So...
yeah, it's just kind of like a nice little reward to our patrons. But so out of the 3 topics, right now it looks like we're going to be covering Olenor after this with 6 votes.
So we put up on our poll, we put up the Scouring of Nostramo, Ulanor, and Chondax. That's right, Chondax.
Nobody really cared for Chondax.
Yeah, 0 votes for Chondax. Sorry, White Scars players. If you're into White Scars or Alpha Legion, you maybe get into some of the business, because we'll definitely go there at some point. But yeah. So Pat, are we there yet?
What do you mean?
Are we gonna lock it down? Is Ulanor the one?
Yeah, I think we're just gonna lock it down. It's got enough votes, and I love orcs, and that's where I'm gonna keep it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, so. Guys, as Pat said, we're recording from the bowels of the Vengeful Spirit. This is the retreat to go way, way, way back in the before times. The retreat was what we wanted to call the cast like a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Actually,
where...
Matthew Boyce, I think, came up with that one.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Shout out to Matt Boyce, wherever you are, dude.
I think he's still stuck in Korea, isn't he?
I don't know. Somewhere. Hope you can come back sometime, Matt. Garrett's got all your nights and stuff. Just taking good care of them. But so the retreat, for those of you who don't know, which you should, is the bar that the Remembrancers would hang out at in the Vengeful Spirit. Mm-hmm. Sort of a little rowdy at times, a little raucous, people get together. The Remembrancers would share notes about the various campaigns they were allowed to witness and stuff. So it seemed very apropos for where we wanted to go with the cast. And I think it's definitely served us well.
It's always been a tongue twister for sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on how much you drink beforehand. It's like, well, to remember it's a retreat.
Yeah, it's just like a happy medium, right? It's just like a little bit will help, but this too much will not.
I always like listening to other people's podcasts, and they'll mention us, and they'll be like,
I do it myself.
RR.
Yeah, RR.
Yeah, those RR guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
That's why I get. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter at RR30K Podcast.
Ooh, very good.
And follow us on our website at rr30k.com for podcast updates, army lists, Battlefleet Heresy, Strike Team, and other homebrew rules.
Dude, you've gotten so much better at this.
Yeah.
It's just such a, this is so good. So,
We are humble.
So, we talked a little bit about this on the last grad school cast, Jesse, is sort of why we decided to go off and do our own thing, but then come back to the main cast when we can. It's just we were taking up so much bandwidth, right? It would just be like Jason and I talking for like 45 minutes with like 8 other people
And it was
listening.
good. And it was good stuff.
It was, but I just also felt like
I think it works out really well.
it does.
Yeah.
It does.
And I mean, it gives the listeners like 2 different things to listen to during a week or
It's like
in between weeks.
Yeah. 2 podcasts in one.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So really, guys, that's all I wanted to talk about. I hope you've been enjoying the sexy segues and the intros that we've added to our multi-part episodes. That will continue to be a way we try to make them even better for you guys. So thank you for your support.
And we will continue to also do the quirky news, breaking news, and lame jokes on the standard podcast.
Definitely. You guys should listen to both.
Yeah, if for some reason you only listen to Heresy Grad School, go listen to the main cast. That if you do anything, go listen to the main cast.
If you listen to the Remembrancers Retreat, there I go again. Listen to Heresy Grad School. Okay, cool.
Cool.
The Xana incursion. Death has reared himself a throne in a strange city lying alone. Hell, rising from 1,000 thrones, shall do it reverence. Unknown poetic fragments collected in the Lexis Dramaturgica, circa M2. Part 5. The Wrath of the Betrayed to the Logic of Survival.
Are we going to do that thing where we just talk over each other like
Nope.
5 or 6 times
That's
back and forth?
no. That's our cast. This is your cast. I'm sorry. Continue.
That's the one joke I like from Letterkenny. Like if we could just do that 8 times, that would... How are you now?
Give your balls a tug.
It took me so long to figure out that was just Jared Kiso doing a stupid voice.
Yep.
In a wig. All right, guys. We are serious. We are here. We are professional educators. Let's talk about some Dark Angels making mischief in the atmosphere of Xana 1. So, last time we told you about that wacky Dark Angels flagship, the Dark Sovereign, kind of coming out of the dark side of the moon and really poking holes in stuff the Xanites have going on. Thank you.
Now you can look and read. It should catch everything.
Exceptional. I feel well taken care of. So,
We don't know how to read on the new cast, so we just
Oh,
talking.
fair enough.
that is fair. All right. Let's talk about what these Dark Angels are getting up to with the Dark Sovereign. They're clearly not in any danger of over-theming. So, in the debris field that they have created for themselves around the orbit of Xana 1, this is causing a big problem. It's making Gilliam Ryjan, the guy on board the Mechanicum Crawler, he's the Archimagos Procurator. He's trying to look good. This is essentially his job interview.
At one time it happened. I'm sorry. Jesus. We're all just going to sweat in here.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's do a quick recap.
Okay.
And we just let Jason start again at the very beginning.
Sounds like
Yep.
like a good idea to me.
All right. And I'm going to go a little bit lower.
I'm gonna get naked.
Just immediately, first suggestion.
I think I'm just gonna Winnie the Pooh this entire cast. So, yeah.
Try that angle right there.
All right.
Good.
I think so.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what the Dark Angels are up to in the orbit of Xana 1.
You got to get right on it to get that nice.
Like this?
Oh, that sounds so good. Oh yeah, man.
Does that sound
Do you
acceptable?
hear it?
Yes, it
Right.
does actually.
Right in the ear holes?
Yes. All right. Take 3.
Good evening, Remembrancers Retreat listeners. Let's talk about what the Dark Angels are up to in the orbit of Xana 1. So, last time we were talking about how the Dark Sovereign comes out of the dark side of the moon and starts making problems for the Xanites trying to get their onboarding shipment. Think of it like the initial membership payment to the Horus, the War Masters Country Club. They're really...
It's real nice. We got 12 holes.
Yeah, right? They're all in space. But things are not going so hot on the ground. Gilum Rajan, you'll remember him from last time, the Archmagos Procurator. It's making him look a little rough to Unkavar Noon and Corridon, the emissary Horus has sent to take care of this whole transition. So as they are on their giant Mechanicum landcrawler, checking out these Ordinatus Ulators, making short work of wave after wave of useless tech adept and loyalist POWs, it's looking a little awkward for him. Somehow this Dark Angel's flagship has just slipped past every defense Xana has and blowing up those initial sort of payments to Horus. As they're looking on, they can see, even from unaugmented mortals, can see the macro carriers in orbit blowing up as they're standing on the bridge of this Mechanicum crawler. So as the Procurator turns to maybe make an exclamation or some sort of explanation to Unkavar Noon, Noon's features melt like wax before him, and faster than even the augmented reflexes of the Archmagos, he gets stabbed right in the business, and by a roaring electroshock surge, shorts out his power systems and his personal defensive field. And this assassin gives him no quarter, neither does Cordon, who just pulls his head off with a power fist. And suffice to say, he fails his initial job interview. He will not be called in for a second follow-up in front of the panel.
Such a shame. He had such great promise.
Right?
Yeah, he definitely rolled 1 on that save.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So when Unkavar Noon, who we know from last lesson, was the appointed emissary of Horus, right? So Horus chose a priest of the Davenite Lodge, right, Pat?
Mm-hmm.
And which lodge did we figure out he was from?
The Crow or Raven.
The Raven Lodge.
Yep.
So this could be one of the first instances that we've seen the actual, deployment of a Calidus assassin in the Black Books, right? So what this means is Malcador's agents, whom we know from Nemesis, Malcador was the Grand Master of Assassins. Pat kind of cleared that up for me today. Who's also one of the High Lords of Terra, which at the time was the War Council. So he was very much behind this sort of assassination mission, and we can assume the greater plot, right? The greater sort of complexity of deception here. So this delegation that was originally sent by Horus to broker the treaty with Xana must have at some point been intercepted and neutralized after it made initial contact with Xana, but before it could return to sort of broker the treaty, right? So because the Calidus assassin is taking on the guise of Unkavar Noon, and Corridon is not Corridon. We'll find out who he is exactly very shortly, but it's about to get real good, guys. We've turned the point of all of the plots have been laid, right? The deception has been laid, and now we're just going to see where it leads. Jason, can you take us back to that point?
All right, let's see here. Next page over on Hour of Execution. So here's where the Xanites are right now. there's a big void battle going on. The Amphion dropped out of hyperspace and started causing problems last time. And while the Zanite Mechanicum are definitely getting the better of them, the problem now is all of their major void defenses are either engaged with the Amphion and its attendant flagships, or they're out of ammunition. Like, a lot of their long-range munitions are just flat out gone. All of their warships are engaged with this Terran battle group. And more importantly, they're just too far away to actually defend the home Forge World or protect those giant supply shipments that are basically just in anchor around Xana 1, fat and defenseless. And that's not terrific in any case, but when it's the Dark Sovereign basically attacking these giant arc carriers with impunity, it's not a great idea for anyone.
No, it's not. And so, I don't know if we should talk about this right now, Jason. Are we gonna pause, or are we gonna keep going?
I'm a fan of a little pause right here.
A little pause. Okay, cool.
A little pause.
So we talked a little bit about the layered strategy that the Loyalists have going in. And so we sort of start to see the depth and complexity of it bear fruit. So the Amphion and the Solar Fleet's arrival into the system start to bear fruit, right? We start to see that the punitive force that was sent by Dorn to Xana was really a lure. It was to lure out the Xana Forge's fleet and void forces, and then to expend their long-range munitions, so that the Loyalists and the incursion force sort of have a little bit of room to maneuver. And I think that's sort of a good place to get back into it.
So like Dave mentioned earlier, Unkavar Noon is one of those creepy Calidus assassins. But also, let's talk about Corridon here. So, as you may have figured out, he is not actually a son of Horus, nor are any of the sons of Horus that are on board any of the Ordinatus Minoris engines. Now, they do specifically say these are not quite yet knight errants. These guys are the bitter fallout of legions who had turned traitor while they had remained loyal. And you might recognize this as a description of the Black Shields, and specifically, their leader is Indrid Har, one of the coolest world eaters, short maybe just of Karn. They're both Terran. Like Dave and I were discussing earlier, fun fact, Karn is from the Urals, which is where his terrific audio drama accent comes from. I love that bit of detail.
You mean the poor potato farmer accent that he currently has?
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So Indrid Har is pretty spectacular as a character, despite the marked disadvantage of being a sort of loyalist. So what's gone on here is they've completely infiltrated from the bottom up and essentially just respray painted their tanks. And so these two mastodons are now having a terrific time running down the escorting Guardian Automata. The Tech Marines on board the Ordinatus Minoris macro engines are causing problems. And this is a massive win for what's basically a small force. It's causing a huge problem, too, because they're, these loyalist Tech Marines on the actual engines themselves are messing with the Jinn command schemes by interfacing with the shattered remains of Rajan to operate some of the remote releases on the collars of all of these, slaves and POWs. And they're now armed. Well, I mean, they were during their own, execution, false war. But this isn't a terrific situation for the Mechanicum anymore. And it's this entire deal is just to come by these Ordinatus macro engines. And while they're taking these down, the Cicatrix Tyrannus is kind of dropping lower into Xana Tisophone's orbit. And it's placing the shadow of the moon between the ship and Xana 2, kind of shielding it from any of the potential fleet that can return. But it's kind of interesting because her crew is ignoring all requests to attack the Dark Sovereign or aid in the defense against the Loyalists. Because, again, these guys are Black Shields, not necessarily loyalish. We'll call them loyal-ish, I think is fair. They're definitely helping out in that direction. But, yeah, so pretty good day for what's essentially a small pirate band, right? They got 3 Ordinatus Minoris engines now.
Yeah, I think it's been a really good day for the Loyalists, and I would go so far as to say that like these guys are pretty hardcore, like for the Emperor Loyalists. Not sure you could say the same thing about all Black Shields, but certainly this band of Black Shields is pretty hardcore for the Emperor, and we start to see their strategy play out in even more depth, right? So the action taking place right now is taking place on Xana Tisiphone, which is the site of so it's an orbital site within orbit of Xana 2, and it's where the Mechanicum, the Voidian Consistory of Xana, have their penal sort of colony as well as their sort of research station, right? So they conduct their sort of forbidden research as well as their they have a bunch of conscripts down there as well, which is why they were doing the weapons testing down there with the macro Ordinatus to begin with. So this is really an amazing feat d'accompli, right? So the Sons of Horus, who are not really the Sons of Horus, but they're this band of Black Shields, are able to take over 3 Ordinatus macro engines. In addition to the 2 Mastodon carriers they have on ground right now, I would just like to take a moment to appreciate the fucking majesty of that moment, right? I mean, we're talking about like weapons of old knight, and in a Forge world, even a great Forge world doesn't have that many. And so this band of like a handful of disparate Space Marines, right, are able to seize control of 3 of the most powerful old knight relics weapons and turn them against basically their creators.
Classic A-team shenanigans.
Yeah, so good. So good. And we've been talking sort of the whole time through this series on Xana, how that's really what the Loyalists have to do. After the massacres at Istavan, they've got to inflict disproportionate losses on the traitors as they make their way back to the Sol system, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'd say this is a pretty damn good contribution. And I know it pains Jason and Pat to hear this, but well played, Loyalists. And here's another interesting Easter egg. I know they're like looking at me right now.
I'm sorry, there's something more important on my phone. If you'll just excuse me a minute.
So here's another one of those interesting Easter eggs that Forge World likes to sort of introduce, and then 200 pages later you get the rest of the backstory, right? So we're talking about Endred Har right now. So we finally find out that Corridon is not a Sons of Horus commander. He's actually Endred Har. And so we're left to wonder who Endred Har is. Well, listeners, on page 246, you can also know who Endred Har is. The dude is like really, really fucking old, right? Like he's was one of the first 4 Gene Battle Brothers of the 12th Legion.
Yeah, he's old for like Space Marine.
Yeah.
Even Primarch at this point, but you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. He was maybe made at the same time as the Primarch project went south. I don't know, but it's a good chance. He was part of the first initiate company of the 12th Legion before they even had the name Warhounds. So we do get a little bit more of his backstory in the red box on the left-hand side of the page. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, if you guys are looking at page 246 right now, but he just fucking looks badass, right? He's just like giant scar running down his face. And those two studs that are sort of drilled into his skull are they're service studs. So if you guys going to dig into the lore a little bit, we know they can either be 10, 50, or 100-year increments, depending on sort of what their tradition is of the chapter in 40K or the Legion in 30K. I would imagine this tradition is just getting started at this point. So he may be one of the first cases that we see.
I mean, there's no mention of it like with Thunder Warriors, so I'm assuming that it's going to be like it would have been brand new whenever he showed up.
That's a really good point, Pat. Yeah, there's definitely no indication that Thunder Warriors adhered to this tradition as well. So, yeah, I mean, I can only assume by sort of what we know in the lore and the backstory that these are probably 100-year increments, service studs. If we think of the initial blast off of, well, maybe, I don't know, what we know of the Unification Wars 800, M30, and then 800's M30, I think.
That sounds about right. Jason, I'm looking over at you like thinking you probably know these dates maybe a little more than I do, but that sounds roughly about right.
I think 800's M30, and then so we're up to like 009 M31. So yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they're 100-year increments. This dude's been fucking kicking in doors and taking names for probably a couple 100 years. I do like how this sort of plays on that theme of the initial Terran gene stock being just so much more loyal to the Emperor than what you get later on, you know, in the recruitment drives of these traitor legions and Primarchs, right?
Ooh. And I know you were talking earlier, like, his black shields are sort of maybe loyalist, and it's funny, one of his special rules is straight up called Agent of the Emperor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually never realized this looking at his stats that you can take him in any loyalist army, and he's a powerhouse.
You can. If you'll notice that lovely toughness 5, which means he can soak that power fist straight to the face, not care, and swing right back.
And while he's in play, pick up to 3 power armored infantry units with Legionis Astartes special rule, and they do not have dedicated transports. They gain the scout special rule and cannot be pinned during the game. That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
But it's super thematic against mech. Think about it, because almost every mech player that I know has Castellax. Like, there's no point in having a mech list if you don't have Castellax. And you have Mauler bolt cannons, which pin, so it like makes perfect sense. You know, these guys are going to be charging through Castellax fire.
I can't remember off the top of my head. Does scout count as a movement on the first turn? Or
No.
You put your heavy weapon infantry, give them scout, and then suddenly you have a pretty good command of the board.
Isn't it initial setup, then you scout, and then the game turn starts? Yeah. I think is how it goes.
So you can put... Oh, the possibilities are endless. I'm actually start using this guy.
I know. I've never seen this guy in the wild.
Me neither.
But one tiny, tiny downside. He's a praetor in absolutely every way. Has that toughness 5, but he's only initiative 4. And 99 times out of 100, it's probably not going to make a difference because he uses a power fist, except against the offhanded blind check. He doesn't give you that boost to initiative 5 to try and avoid it.
That's when you put him in a squad. You don't take him as the HQ. You put him in a squad. and then he just becomes an agent of the Emperor and kicks ass. So, yeah, I would love to see this guy in the wild. I'd love to see... this guy should have a character. He should have a model.
Running with some Dark Angels for some Xana action.
Fuck yeah,
and
dude.
boom, there you go. Cool. I'm
Yeah.
set. Yep.
All right, Jesse's going to change his Nova
He's
list.
my new favorite cat.
So, yeah.
Mortalis, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No. Deadly.
Anyway,
So I think we've sort of solidified the fact that if you were born on Terra and you were part of the initial sort of induction into the Legionis Astartes, you're super hard for the Emperor.
You say that, but look at
Every
what
single
happened.
Legion.
So
sorry.
as soon as the Horus Heresy starts, almost all of the loyalist legions like kill off their Terrans because their Terrans suddenly go traitor,
Wait, what?
or several of them go traitor.
Is it? All right.
Jason, back me up on this.
All right, a couple of things. I think you're right in most cases, but I think there are two standouts we should talk about. One are the Night Lords.
Thank you.
The Terran Night Lords got along famously with the Nostraman Night Lords. They had one of the easiest, like, kind of meldings once they found their homeworld. And the Night Lord gene seed actually manifests kind of neat in a different way in Terrans than it did in Nostramans. So
Turns them all into Batman.
Kind of close.
Is it the lack of vitamin D or what?
Yeah.
50-50.
They just walk around and keep on saying, "I'm the knight."
But so one of the interesting things that they talk about, there's a very cool little short story. I forget what it's called. I think it's Child of Night, but it's this little itty bitty short story on Fel Zarost, the chief librarian for the Night Lords, and what it was like in the underground prison, which is where most of the original Terran induction for the 8th Legion came from. The gene seed of the Night Lords in Terran Marines causes their teeth to grow in sharpened without the need to file them, like was really popular in the Shredder cult gangs in Nostromo, which is kind of cool, but it's something I'm going to touch on later whenever we do the scouring of Nostromo.
Yeah, man.
Because I got so many conspiracy theories about that business.
No, that's so good.
But then in the other direction, what's his face? Korax famously had a mad-on for his Terran Marines. Tried to get them killed at Gate 64? And then when he couldn't kill all of them, he just sent them off into the outer darkness on, super important mission out there, outside of the edge of galactic space. You'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah, that was sort of his Istvan, right? Without being an Istvan. But, I mean, I think, yeah, and then the other example I'm sure you were going to say is the White Scars.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of going.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
Where Khan's just kind of like, nah, fuck these guys. Let's kill them all.
I'm not going to lie, with all of the naysaying on White Scars in Book 8, my only disappointment was it did not give me a traitor White Scar character.
Yeah, right?
Not a single loyalist
Super
legion.
oversight, man.
Yeah, not a single loyalist legion has a traitor character option, where more than half of the traitor legions have a loyalist option.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was going to be one, White Scar seems like the one to do it.
Mm.
I mean, give me my Torgan Khan.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I don't care if he can't be used past, a certain point. I'm okay with that. He was cool.
But before we go into the next segment, I kind of want to pick Jesse's brain on this exact topic. Do you think?
Actually, I have to interact.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. No. Oh, okay.
Do you think they're going to give rules for Luther? And if so, do you think they'll make him traitor?
So here's the thing. Luther potentially. I mean, if they have Corferon
Right.
as a character, I can see Luther potentially. I could also see Maria Astelan
Mm-hmm.
as a character. We'll say for the most part, the Calibanite and the more or less traitor Dark Angels are more like Black Shields in a way.
Yeah.
Less Emperor driven, but not necessarily aligning themselves with Horus.
Yeah.
They're more for Caliban, for their order.
It's kind of every single story or every single like snippet of lore that I've heard about them, that's always how I've seen them as well.
Yeah, so they may not necessarily be taken as. I mean, I guess they could take. It's hard to say, but potentially some sort of other faction.
They're a lot more like
Black
the
Shields, perhaps.
They're like the Alpha Legion. Like they have their own agenda.
Yeah,
Right? They're not suborned to the Dark Gods, right? They're not like in allegiance with like War Master Horus and the Dark Gods. They're sort of like, we're gonna side with you and then see what it can get us.
a very simple way to fix that also would be just to not say they belong to a loyalist or traitor legion. Just leave them as is.
Yeah,
Legiones Astartes, Dark Angels, and do what you will with them.
yeah, that'd be cool.
You heard it here first, folks. Dark Angels aren't traitors.
I mean, granted, a few did try to assassinate the Emperor, but, you know.
Yeah,
shit
Well,
happens.
water
Shit
under the bridge.
yeah.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't when they first meet the Emperor?
Right?
Which planet hadn't tried to kill the Emperor on their way?
That's like a handshake, basically. Yeah. All right.
Emperor's like, yep, this is the place.
Definitely.
my
a
son is
Primarch.
there.
There's a Primarch around here somewhere. All right, but if they end up not including Corswain, I'm going to be a little upset.
Yeah.
Me too.
I feel like
They will.
they have to, right? There needs
If they
to
got
be.
Raldoron, they'll have Corswain.
There has to be. I mean, because if I don't get like a Sevatar v. Corswain Savage Weapons like little mini diorama, I mean, how cool would that be?
Hella.
Well, but the problem with Sevatar is he's already got a diorama to himself.
They can fix that in post.
I mean, they made a whole separate base for Russ and Magnus.
Oh yeah, they made that whole diorama base.
Huh. I always thought it came as one
Nope,
because...
you can buy it. Well, I don't think they
well,
sell
no,
it anymore.
I mean,
but-
originally...
yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, where was I going with this? I'm really excited to see what the character models look like.
Yeah.
As much as the Legion-specific models have been looking. Oh, my God.
So what you're missing right now, listeners, is Jesse is pointing to this pile of the beautiful Dark Angel models that have recently come out that
The Inner
has
Circle guys.
almost got me to play Loyalist. This close. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Probably not. That's okay.
It's okay.
It takes all kinds, especially when you play narrative.
I'll just wait to get beaten up by them at Nova. That's all. No big deal.
It's going to be good. Now it's just a matter of seeing if the book will come out before Nova or not.
I mean, they've got to release it before Nova. They've released so much.
I mean, granted, I think how long was it? I know we're going on a tangent here, and I apologize. How
Perfectly
long was it
fine.
before they released the rules for Sanguinius? Before they released Book 8, it wasn't very long.
I don't want to.
Maybe a month.
It was 2 months max, I think. But
the book's got to be written.
Because I think they released
well, yeah.
they released the model. Then
they're
like
just
here are the
gonna-
rules like a week or two afterwards when everybody's like, "What's the rules for him?"
But you know they're going to juice it or they're going to squeeze it for as much as they can get out.
Do we know if printing's been moved to the UK or not?
No idea.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, right, that's going to be the delta.
Especially with the current atmosphere.
Yeah. Shipping delays and everything. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Full.
it's got to be written, man. It's got to be done.
It's on a boat somewhere.
It's on a boat
Yeah.
somewhere.
They got to keep it safe from scurvy and coronavirus.
So,
Anyway.
so let's get back here, guys, to the story at hand. I will just fall back and say that I think the whole Terran gene stock thing, being more loyal, is pretty solid, but for a few circumstances, I think that's the story of
Heading off the base. I can hear the metallic clicking. I'm sorry.
No worries. I think that's the story of Nathaniel Garrow, and sort of that's why so many of the Terrans were purged during the Istvan massacres. But I just want to return very quickly to the action that is ongoing right now on Xana Tisiphone. And if we turn very quickly to page 74, we get a beautiful full color plate of the Forged Tyrant, Arud Vaughn, who is part of the Xana 2 infiltration force. So this is one of the tech marines that is able to capture and overcome the Ordinatus Minoris Asherax. He is just a super badass. I've never seen this model before. Do we have a model like that?
Yeah.
Oh, we do?
It's the Mark IV Tech Marine, I think, right?
Okay, fucking badass, dude. My bad.
Get you one.
But
Treat
yeah,
yourself.
you know, right? I play this game.
So they tell me.
So what we know is of the 12 Tech Marines of the Loyal Legions, so the Black Shields that entered into the heart of Asherax, right? So that went down into sort of the control node. Only 5 are going to survive sort of that attempt at overcoming their data gene and sort of protocol incursion. So, you know, he's obviously done the same thing here as on the Macedons. He sort of crudely approximated what a Chthonian would look like, a Sons of Horus would look like. A lot of that is probably, you know, just based on pick feed and deception. But it worked on Xana. It worked because, like we talked before, the Magi of Xana had very little experience with sort of the heraldry of the War Masters Legion, and we're going to get into a heraldry heavily with Jesse. Heraldry is something that we do heraldry on Heresy Grad School. That's one of the things I like to do. I like to unpack a lot of that sort of symbology.
Didn't we go through like 2 episodes of like just discerning what's on the back of a Titan?
Yeah, we at least 2.
I will say before we move on, for those of our audience who's also into 40K, listen to Hell's Reach. There's a very good portion of it where a Black Templar Tech Marine tries to take control of a Ordnance Ascension. And just like his internal monologue is him fighting against the machine spirit, because it's just this apex predator of a machine that's just trying to take over his brain.
Oh yeah,
and it's insane. Like the book talks through like the protocols that he has to deal with, and like even just for it to like move at 25 miles an hour is a strain, you know. And he can only get 1 shot off.
Yeah, no, I mean, I fucking love the whole like going into the noosphere and like data hacking into the fucking brain pan of the Archmagos of Xana 2. Have we talked about that yet? No. Okay, Jason's shaking his head at me, so like no spoilers yet.
Mild spoilers.
Mild spoilers. All right, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna hand it back to Jason.
One important thing I think we should discuss before we get off page 74, though. So at the bottom left there, that crude approximation of Chthonian heraldry. If it's just an approximation, do you just think they like threw a couple runes on there that look good? Is it like one of those deals where people go to get like a tattoo in a language they don't understand?
And it's just chicken noodle soup instead of bravery or something like that?
It's like a bunch of nonsense words in Chthonian.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, cat, garbage pan. like,
Yeah. I think you should.
He is of the Ashtray clan of Chthоnia.
Yeah. Be a badass tattoo, though, if you just got all of those. I just thought about that. You just got all those tattoos. And you could just make it up. You could just say it means whatever you want it to mean. You know?
Yeah, but what happened if you, like, run into the one Forge World guy?
Yeah.
Like, it's something, he was like, dude, what do you have, like, you know, cat, garbage pan, ashtray, and Chthonian, like, tattooed on your arm? That's...
Be awkward.
That would
be awkward. Yeah.
Right, and you want to make a good first impression with those guys.
You do. We should write Forge World before we do that. Be like, what does this really mean?
Can you translate, please?
I just want to make sure this isn't anything like ridiculous before I permanently ink it on my body.
That's right. We'll let you know.
You know, maybe just a tramp stamp in Chthonian that says Horus for life or something like that.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna get back to the story here, and Jason, where are we?
Well, we are on page 69, and
Nice.
I'm going to turn this over to Jesse for
Oh, no.
The Fury of the Dark Sovereign.
Okay, well, gotta say, I don't speak as eloquently as you guys. I might be reading just straight from the book. You guys do a really good job at paraphrasing everything, and I've been pretty impressed.
Oh, no, we absolutely fake it. We're just good at it by now.
Just smile and nod.
Seems like you guys been doing this for a while. So, okay. Here we are at the Fury of the Dark Sovereign. Page 69. In the debris ring that orbited Xana 1, a great and violent tempest had been enacted. One after another, the huge freight ships of the supply fleet, heavily laden with munitions and other volatiles, were torn apart by the fury of the Dark Angel's warships' attacks, or were set burning and left bleeding their disintegrating cargoes into space. The macro transports, some tens of kilometers long, never intended for war, had no arms or defenses of their own enough to answer such a deadly craft as the Dark Sovereign. While their ungainly bulk would have been made escape impossible if they had not been caught at the station by the blade-like Predator ship. As the Dark Sovereign reeved her way through the great arc of supply vessels, cannon blazing as she went, she reached the core of the fleet, where the most valuable prize vessels were kept, brazen-hulled Mechanicum barks, and stasis-vaulted dromons, now drawn up into a defensive torrid formation. Compared to the dull hulks of the macro freighters, these transports had teeth enough to answer their attacker, and as the Dark Sovereign plunged down amid them like a knife from the dark, the bark's coordinated batteries opened fire on their attacker, lancing the void with blazing streams of superheated plasma and golden beams of coherent energy. The Dark Sovereign's shields flared as barrage found her, silhouetting the blade-like ship of in a corona of light, but she came on undaunted, for this was a vessel of the First Legion, and a veteran of centuries of nightmarish war amid the dark stars. Instead of the close pass to bring her weapons to bear with maximum effort, which naval doctrine dictated and Mechanicum's logis cogitators had no doubt also predicted, the Dark Sovereign dived into the heart of the defensive formation, her guns suddenly silent, all available power directed to her shields to weather the storm of counterfire at point-blank range. She passed her first prey at a scant few hundred of meters, and a talon of Charybdis assault claws stabbed out from the Dark Sovereign's flanks to bury themselves into the Xanite bark's hull. The Dark Angel's warship rolled as she sped by, and more assault claws speared into a second bark, too close and too swift to be intercepted. A squadron of Cestus assault rams broke from the Dark Sovereign and peeled off in the wake of the warship's blazing engines to find prey of their own as the Dark Angel's ship found her final target, a lost, almost crystalline void Drummond, designated now the Mu 571, a singular ship which was perhaps one of the Xenos origins before the Mechanicum had spidered their own steel-gray workings across the white quartz hull. The MU 571's own drives burned white-hot as it tried to escape imminent collision, but did so in vain. The armored belly of the Dark Sovereign smashed the Dromon's spine and flew on, shredding the MU 571's void shields to nothingness, and setting the ship tumbling out of control, as in its heart chambers reality split open and the black armored figures of Dark Angel's Terminators manifested into the lightning crackle aftershock of their teleporter assault.
So good.
So the Dark Sovereign's just going balls to the wall.
Going ham.
It's like, okay.
All right. Wild speculation here. What Xenos species do we think the Mu 571 came from?
So it does talk about it being crystalline, which I know could be Eldari, but I also wonder if it's because we talk about the fall incursion and that kind of stuff, or we talked about it early on in our segments. Wonder if it's a fall ship.
A Frawl?
Yeah. Because we don't necessarily have good descriptions of Frawl ships.
Yeah, they're different though. They're circular. We have some pics of them. They're like,
okay.
They're sort of, definitely different than I think the description of this.
Crystalline does kind of say Eldar to me.
So much.
It sounds that kind of fancy.
Yeah.
That they're pretty
A white
into.
quartz hull.
Yeah.
Mm.
Almost sounds like a Wraithbone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think this just speaks to like the Xana Forge being on the very outskirts and border of the Imperium, and just this is the withheld fleet, right? This is why both the War Master and the Emperor sent delegations to Xana saying, whose side are you on? Because they had this just massive reserve fleet waiting in the debris field of Xana 1, right? The gas giant. And so, this is really cool, Jesse. What do you think about this?
Yeah, like I don't know what to say. It's just like the Dark Sovereign as a really special type of ship. I hope one day we can see something of that nature. I've been reading the Lions Primarch novel, and unfortunately they haven't had any mention of it, which I'm a little bit sad about, but it's such a unique little bit of fluff.
Yeah, really. I mean,
Like how many other Legion, like I haven't delved into these as much as you guys have, but what other Legion has like a special ship of unknown origin of that nature? I can't think of any.
No. And I mean, every Legion's flagship is a little different, but never this different, you know?
Right. This isn't even the flagship. This is like,
there was one in Nemesis, actually.
oh yeah?
It wasn't a ship that was as sort of aggressive as the Dark Sovereign, but you remember the ship that was the strike team got on?
It's in the back of my brain right now. I know exactly what you're talking about.
They had the sort of super sophisticated warp drives. They were able to sort of knife through. We'll figure it out, but it was very.
Didn't Loken and his strike team use something similar in
Yes.
in Vengeful Spirit when
Yes.
they tried to assassinate Horus? Yeah.
Yeah,
But I'm also trying to, like, those were fairly small ships.
they
too.
were.
Right. Whereas
were.
this
Like,
is the size
they're,
of a...
they're launching Cestus assault rams
Yeah.
and Charybdis assault claws.
So this is Gloriana class, probably. So
I don't know
maybe
if
a little
that big.
smaller?
I don't know.
I wouldn't say Gloriana, but it's definitely
It's got to
A
be
good
bigger
size.
than a normal Space Marine strike cruiser, though, I imagine.
I feel like they mentioned it earlier on in this. I don't think this was the first mention of it.
No, it definitely wasn't. It was found on Ganymede in the frozen depths. It was a relic of old night. Maybe the age of technology, but
The Emperor himself digging it out.
yeah, right.
Page 67.
Oh yeah, nice, dude. Yeah, the Emperor himself gave this to the First Legion. I mean, the First Legion got all the cool stuff, right, Jesse?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I've been reading the Primarch novel. Yeah, we got some good stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, no mere Legionis Astartes strike cruiser, but a lone relic of old night.
That's all we've got to go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No real description of dimensions or of anything of that nature.
Very cool.
That is maybe the most frustrating part about this entire section.
Yet again, another Dark Angels mystery.
Right. I want details. I want to know like what its dimensions are, what kind of class it is, what weapons it has,
Crew size.
Right.
how many toilets are in like the lion's bunk. I want to know.
The man's got to go to the bathroom. I know. Part of me wants to, like, I don't know why my brain is making this association with the sisters' black ships.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just the name.
It could be.
But, like, because it's described as having all this old technology, and I'm thinking also the sisters' black ships are, like, virtually impossible to see and, you know, can pop in and out of the warp wherever the hell they want to, that kind of thing.
Unfortunately, I have a really unfortunate mnemonic device. Whenever I hear the word sovereign, I think of the Sovereign from the Venture Brothers, and all I can think of is David Bowie now whenever I see the word sovereign.
Oh, no.
Oh,
It's just...
it's unfortunate.
Worth it.
It was unintentional, but there it is.
So, I mean, but Jesse, you and I talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and that the First Legion, as the First Legion was created by the Emperor, had a very special mandate that could explain why they got a lot of this very rare sort of war material, relics of old night. And we touched on this a little bit 3 or 4 episodes ago, right at the beginning of Xana, when we talked about the Rangda, right? And so how the First Legion essentially spent almost half of their strength against the Rangda. The Rangda were not the only Xenos species that the First Legion had to go up against. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about sort of that?
So I will say in the Lions Primarch novel, they don't really touch on any of the other Xenos.
Okay.
They do talk about the Rangda
Okay.
and what a just an impression that left on the Legion afterwards. Because this book takes place like months after the Xenocides.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice, dude.
It mentions, minor spoilers, major spoilers, minor spoilers, that only the Lion himself knew what the final toll was on the Dark Angels. He wouldn't let any of the other superiors know. He left that to himself to carry that burden.
Don't feel bad about spoilers. We're the book nerds in this one, so you're good.
Touching on the somewhat important sanction that the Emperor gave to the Dark Angels, I'll read a little bit of excerpt out of here. On page 100. The Wolf King boasted to all that he was his father's executioner. He was a deterrent, a hound to snarl from behind a sealed gate, never to be unleashed. What the lion was to his father did not speak to its name so brazenly. For where Russ was warning, the lion was the solution, the final solution. He was Emperor's exterminator.
So badass, dude. No, it's so good, and I hope we see more of this in Book 9.
Yep, and yeah, there's all sorts of good stuff in here. Another fun excerpt. Even the Mechanicum did not know what terrible secrets had been locked away by the Dreadwing in chambers such as these. They're in a Dreadwing weapons cache. If the machine priests of Mars should ever seek to turn against the Emperor's goals of galactic unity, then it would be the weapons of the Dark Angels that would bring them low. Pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah. I know you and I had a conversation about that one where, maybe they're going to get some special anti-mech bolts and things like that.
Mm. Oh, and for you, Jason, we're talking about the models earlier, like with the Dark Angels and their big keys and things.
Mm-hmm.
The Dreadbringer presented a thick iron key and inserted in a concealed lock. And then he just opens up this giant Dreadwing weapons cache. So yeah, the keys have a meaning.
We were talking about it earlier. I love the ridiculous dichotomy of paradigms of having super technologically advanced space lasers from before the dawn of time locked up in a thing that requires a giant ass metal key like you're in a jailer from the Wild West.
That being said, you did have to go through a whole bunch of other digital and biometrics to get to that part. But then
you had to have the right. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Well, to get back to the action at hand.
Back to Xana.
Back to Xana. We've got some Dark Angels that are just going fucking hard to the knife here, doing Charybdis assault strikes and Castus ram strikes, and so this Dark Sovereign is launching out all kinds of. We've got teleport Homer attacks, right, going on here, all with the intent of capturing the most prized possessions of the Xana withheld fleet. So, Jesse, take us through some of the goodness here, man. We've got page 72 and 73 that are just sort of dedicated to the Dark Angels' deep lore here, and I want to unpack this with you.
Yep. So this was also the first bit of artwork from the Black Books that you see of Dark Angels, which was really exciting for me.
Yeah.
Because okay, so this is what they look like. I knew they were black armored. We had some of the models and stuff, like the shoulder pads and whatnot, but seeing these guys, especially that Terminator, really left an impression on me. It's this is badass.
Yeah, man.
So we'll start with the Dark Angels Lance Decurion on page 72. Sir Pelagor Marner, Squad Adjutant of Eloy 7 Despoiler Squad. 52nd chapter of the First Host, Ordination of the Fire Wing, the Dark Angels Legion. Pelagor Marner was a Calibanite legionary of the Dark Angels, whose chapter was based upon the famed pre-Imperium warship, the Dark Sovereign, and whose presence is recorded in the order of the battle logs for the Sibelius campaign of 002 Mark 31. This was the last confirmed action of the Dark Sovereign prior to the Horus Heresy. The path and activities of the Dark Angels relic warship between this time and its surprise attack during the covert operations known as the Xana Incursion remain unknown to surviving Imperial records, but evidence indicates that it was not part of the marshaled Dark Angels fleet during the Theramis Crusade. And Armor and Livery, which is a podcast, so page 72, and You can find this somewhere. The insignia and ornamentation displayed by Lance Decurion Pelagor Marner is highly indicative of the developed systems utilized by the Dark Angels Legion by the end of the Great Crusade. This combines elements of later Unification era Av-Arm Techno-Coven Glyphographia, early iteration Principia Bellicosa designated iconography for the Legiones Astartes, and elements of the distinctive heraldic devices of the feudal Calvinite culture. As is noted in numerous sources, this fusion language of livery was employed to deliver information on a number of levels by the Legion. These layers of meaning being largely opaque to outside eyes and maybe only visible to certain individuals within the Dark Angels. Of further note is the armor, which is distinctive Paravane subtype, an idiosyncratic variant of widely issued Mark II pattern produced by artificers of the First Legion and renowned for its enhanced void endurance and systems. So, I will say as of right now, for the most part, a lot of the iconography of the Dark Angels is still somewhat shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
I imagine Book 9 is going to delve quite a bit into it.
I hope so.
I hope so too. Or else they'd just say, yeah, this is all secret. Nobody knows what this means. Continue on.
So I wonder, because Jason might be able to correct me with this, but I think Mark IV was the first armor that actually had the head could actually move. Is that correct?
That's how it started out, but I feel like they dropped that very early
I wasn't sure,
on.
because at least when you look at the armor, like the majority of the armor on this color is
Separated
is
from
second second edition or Mark II, and then the helmet is very, very close to that Mark IV era helmet. So I was just
drastically
noticing that.
different from your standard Mark II, Mark III.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you Google it, you can find like the really old school charts of stuff from like, I think it was from one of the older Index Astartes, like circa early 2000s.
It's like the anatomy of a suit kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's very clear that the original Mark IIs had essentially a fixed helmet. It was like an old school Iron Man suit. And but now it's like very clear when I think even in a couple of the color panels from book 1, Mark II armor has a very different look to it than like that older kind of which is, I feel like,
well, so the reason I think it's so cool is because, you know, Mark II and Mark III are these older patterns of armor, and like that was when legions were legions. You didn't just have 1,000 Space Marines. You had hundreds of thousands of Space Marines.
Sure.
So you could lose a couple guys, and it's okay if they don't have their full line of sight, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So looking on to this guy on page 72. So it shows the 2 shoulder pads. Right. We have the white double-ended arrow, which most people are used to as tactical from 40K on up.
Right.
Which makes sense because he is a despoiler squad, so basically an assault or a tactical marine with just running around with chainsword and bolt pistol. You have a white circled 1 in there on his knee pad there with some lightning bolts. I'm assuming that's what they refer to as far as the Unification era Techno-Coven Glyphographia. On his left, his left shoulder pad, he has an emblem of the Fire Wing. And it resembles the Consecrators chapter emblem in 40K.
All right. Yeah.
Very close to it. So that's one of the wings. Reading the Lions novel, the Fire Wing seems to be more of a search and destroy assassin type of wing. Like they're there to determine the greatest threat, move in, take it out, and get out.
So it'd make perfect sense that he's a despoiler then, and so he's used to hitting fast with a bolter and a chainsword, that kind of thing.
Yep, and then you also have the classic Dark Angels Legion symbol on his left shoulder pad, our right. As far as Dark Angels go, he has fairly few amounts of iconography on him. I will say, with the release of the special edition of the Lion Primarch novel, which I'm super happy I managed to get. If you look on the cover case, you have 6 emblems, which represent the 6 wings of the Dark Angels, which is the hexagrammaton. And if you're looking at home, you can find this online. If you have it in your hand, it's awesome, isn't it? So looking at this, we have, starting from the left, moving our way to the right, we have a winged delta, lambda. I don't know my Greek. It's the triangle. That's the delta, right?
Yeah.
Delta symbol. With an iron halo over it, which represents the iron wing. You have next an hourglass with skulls on either side, which is also what I remember, right? The star phantoms, I believe, that's the iconography for them as well. Because I know it isn't officially revealed that the star phantoms are a chapter that originated from the Dark Angels, but I think it was always inferred.
Deeply inferred. Yeah.
So I think this pretty much confirms that.
That's so good.
You guys might be able to help me out on this one. It almost looks like a Rainbow Warriors emblem. This is the Stormwing, and I don't know too much about the Stormwing yet, other than the fact that it is breachers. It's their Marines, basically, getting onto the board, ships, and taking them out.
And you're talking about the lightning bolt with wings. Right?
Correct.
Yes. So there is a Warhammer community article that came out a couple years ago that I just found. And it says the Stormwing, it's a very short entry, was a formation used in the Great Crusade consisting exclusively of breacher squads with boarding shields. The Stormwing specialized in spaceborne boarding operations.
That matches up with what I've been reading. So
Badass, dude.
So they'd be in those Charybdises and those rams that we were just talking about earlier.
And I totally mentioned the hourglass with the skulls is the Dreadwing, obviously. Stormwing, lightning bolt with wings. Pull up a picture of the Rainbow Warriors emblem, because I almost, I look at it and it's like, that looks really, really familiar.
Which one are we talking about here?
This is the Stormwing, if you look at that.
Okay.
And while they're looking at that, we'll go to the next one, which is the Firewing, the Consecrators. Like I mentioned, it's a almost assassin-esque seeker type of wing. Moving on from that, you have the cross swords of the Deathwing, which these are basically the elite fighters. These are the hand-to-hand combat specialists.
Right. So I see the similarities with the Rainbow Wing. In this case, it's more of the lightning bolt is the opposite direction, and it's meant to be like the lightning or thunder coming down into one. Makes
sense. Like I said, I hadn't looked at that. I hadn't seen that symbol in a long time, but that was the first one that came to my mind when I saw it.
They're also an Ultramarine sort.
That's what I remember too. So,
did we get a Dark Angels transfer sheet?
We did.
From Forge World?
We did.
Does it have all 6 of the hexagrammaton?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, so good.
I can pull it out. I'll bring it out here in a second.
Yeah, man.
Take a look at it. And finally, the last emblem is the Raven Wing. So the Deathwing and the Raven Wing didn't change too much.
Yeah.
I'd say the Deathwing is a little bit different. Deathwing in 40K is the classic Dark Angel symbol, except the sword is broken in two.
So this guy, though, I want to ask you a couple questions. Yeah. I want to unpack this on page 72. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you some questions. If you don't know the answer, that's cool. No worries. A lot of this is still shrouded.
We'll just shrouded you. No big deal. Not a problem.
So what is a Lance Decurion?
No idea.
Yeah, right. Is that like a rank or is that like a formation?
So the way they talk about it, it almost seems like a rank, the way they describe it in the second section. It says the insignia and ornamentation displayed by Lance Decurion Pelagor Marner. Sounds like it's some sort of...
Yeah, I agree, because he's a squad adjutant, right? So he's a squad adjutant of a Lance Decurion, the spoiler squad. I don't know, man.
Now they're mentioned in the Lion novel.
Yeah.
Like they talk... They bring up the point several times that the hierarchy of the Dark Angels is incredibly convoluted.
Complex and convoluted, even to people that are in, right? Because you have circles within circles within circles, right? And a lot of it's clandestine, and you have to be
nightly orders. You have to be in the know.
So when I think Lance Decurion, I'm thinking to I guess, make a similarity in our military is like a lance corporal kind of sort
Oh
of
yeah,
situation.
yeah.
I'm
And
gonna grab
so,
that transfer sheet real quick.
so maybe like a junior officer, like a junior officer.
Yeah, it makes sense given his sort of squad adjutant role. I think that's solid thinking, man.
Or I mean, I guess a lance corporal would be like more like an NCO, wouldn't it? Or am I thinking of that correctly?
Land Corporal Marine Corps. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that would be like the corporal in the Army, and then who knows what the British military is, because
really that's probably where they're pulling most of this stuff.
it is. And a Decurion, if we were to look it up right now, Decurion may be something like a squad sergeant or something in the Roman military. But oh, so good. Jesse just gave me the transfer sheet for the Dark Angels.
Well, didn't give you. He's showing it to
Oh, no,
you.
yeah, no, not
He
given.
has fought tooth and nail.
Yeah, I'm not walking out of this place with this. That's for sure.
I think my favorite part of that transfer sheet is is the skeletons at the very top. That's one of the things that I've always liked about Dark Angels. But
Okay, so it
Are we the baddies? Maybe.
looks like we've got most of the
hey,
hexagrammaton.
don't
here.
make me take back the Dark Angels aren't traitors comment earlier.
I don't see the fire wing. Jesse, do you? Here, take a look at this for me. Take a look at this for me. All right.
In the
across the table.
meantime, Decurion is a Roman cavalry officer in command of a squadron of cavalrymen in the Roman army.
Perfect. Love it. That totally works.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like Lance being sub, so like he's the sub commander of a squad, or like
That is interesting. No fire wing on this. I did not realize that.
But does it have all the other wings?
Oh, no, it's staring right in front of my
Is it?
freaking face. Yeah, it looks so similar to the Iron Wing.
Okay.
But
We've
yeah,
got it.
because they both have the wreath
Yep.
underneath.
Yep.
But yeah, they're
So
all
we've-
there.
We've got the full hexagrammaton on the Dark Angels transfer sheet, confirmed by your guest lecturer, Jesse. So what else did I want to unpack here? There's so much, Jesse. What is the first host? Do we have any idea?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like it's. I mean, look at that whole list right there. Let's see, squad adjutant, the spoiler squad, 52nd Shadow Front Host, coordination. There's like 5 or 6 different layers of.
Right.
First host could relate to Gene Seed. It could relate to just the squad in general.
Actually, isn't
Could
that
be
a
like a company.
isn't that a squad designator the Blood Angels use too?
Is it?
The host.
Potentially.
I feel like this is a greater body, though. This is the 52nd chapter of the first host, right?
Yeah. I wonder if they use it like the Emperor's Children use millennials.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind also
they
they
use
don't,
Gen
they
X
don't
too?
mention like a company.
Yeah.
There's no mention of a company.
Right.
Maybe
So
they
maybe
replace
that's the-
host with company.
So in Book 9, Forge World, we're going to need a taxonomy and
There's a
a...
good chance that all of this could be different.
I require an
I really
appendix.
think
Thank you
that.
very
You think
much.
so?
It could be.
I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully they stay on point.
Do we want to move
Let's-
on to the cataphracti?
Yep. Well, on page 73, you have an unknown Dark Angels Legionary Primaris. Primaris? Oh.
What's this? He's
Assumed-
taller than everybody. What's going on?
So yeah, assumed 13th chapter of the third host, Terminator Assault Squad, Ordination of the Death Wing, the Dark Angels Legion in the Xana incursion. You had something, Jason?
I may have figured out what a host is. Stay tuned.
Okay. I'll keep on reading this then while you're looking at that. Taken from a fragmentary Viz-Vox transmission recording recovered in the cortex of a fallen nanite mechanicum tech priest at the Battle of Gaunt's Hollow in 009.M31. This image is believed to relate to the infamous Xana incursion. Pictured in the record is a Terminator assault force engaging Thalax cohorts within the outer docking bays of a large void freighter. Provisionally identified from ident iconography as the Thorn Macro 878, a former Chartist high conveyor subordinated by the Xana Mechanicum faction prior to the incursion and included as part of their vast withheld fleet of supply. The identity of the Dark Angels Terminator shown in this image cannot be conclusively confirmed, however. From the insignia and armorial detailing, it can be ascertained that his unit is of the 13th chapter of the third host, a formation not known to be assigned to the Dark Sovereign as a matter of course, and its involvement in the incursion remains a mystery.
So I do have a it might just be an artistical preference on Forge World or Dark Angels players, but I've seen both the red and black checker pattern, and I've also seen the white and black checkered pattern. Is there any significance in that, or is it just kind of like...
Not that I know of yet.
Okay.
Checker pattern is pretty popular, but as far as the colors go...
I mean, I know it's popular from an orc player standpoint. But...
Oh, sure. As far as I can tell, there's no differentiating those two right now. You got...
Oh, yeah.
All right, lay it on us.
This is a rabbit hole.
What are you on right now? What's the source?
Oh, goodness. It's from book 6, but I got to figure it out. All right. Anyhow, hold it. Before the creation of the first legion, each of the Legiones Astartes were organized instead into a formation known as the 6 hosts of the Angels of Death, with each of these hosts having its own specialization and purpose. During the
Hexagrammaton.
Yeah, during the Terran Wars of Unification, the 6 hosts had each been created by the Emperor for a specific task or for a particular type of warrior. Their names, if any, were unknown by the 2nd century of the Great Crusade. So the warriors of each host could be called on when a particular threat or situation presented itself. The leader of a host elected by his sect brothers rather than appointed by the emperor in those times would assume temporary command of a battle or campaign so their expertise could be deployed fully. It's not understood what happened to the Hexagrammaton in the other legions and why its structure persisted only within the first. For reasons only the emperor knows, he chose not to continue with the 6 hosts and instead created the Principia Bellicosa to structure the Legiones Astartes along tactical lines which are now most familiar.
Interesting. So that would lead to believe that the Fire Wing is the first host and the Death Wing the third host, which is interesting because I don't think they necessarily named them here.
Wow.
Yeah. Because following the first reunification of the Primarch Lionel Johnson, the Lion incorporated the traditions of the 6 hosts with those of his own native knightly brotherhood known as the Order. Thus, the 6 wings of the First Legion were created.
Wow.
There you go.
Now we can go down the rabbit hole of which legion is which.
So technically you'd be first host and Fire Wing. Interesting.
That's some deep lore, guys.
Yeah.
So despite being a relatively minor maybe officer, it seems like he has quite the
skill set.
Service.
Yeah.
The pedigree, the background, the
Which
prestige.
is interesting because it also mentions that he is a Calibanite. So it didn't really matter. Still call it the host.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
I wonder if because he would have to be after the reunification if he was a Calibanite because he's not Terran.
Right.
But is this one of those things they just kind of hung on to in secret?
Could be.
It's like a really archaic name that maybe they hung on to.
Because I don't think the Dark Angels ever went to the Principia Bellicosa. They just retained their Hexagrammaton.
Yeah. All right. Good times. We're learning stuff every day.
Thanks, Jason. That's totally why we do this, guys.
I mean,
literally why we do this.
And we pulled it up within like 3 seconds of talking about it too. So like
handy.
Yeah.
We do the work so you don't have to.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, continue on with the Terminator, the armor and livery. The individual pictured here is armor in late production, forge modified, cataphractii. Why did I say cataphractii? Pattern Terminator armor. With a livery and insignia unique to the later deployments of the Dark Angels Legion in the era of the Great Crusade and early wars of the Horus Heresy, as well as ornate depictions of his Legion symbol, the Aciarium, the ancient Terran symbol of the Angel of Death of Old Night, and the crossblades of the Order of the Deathwing, the Legion's elite. Also in evidence are the Star of the Hexagrammaton, one of the more arcane and little understood of the Legion's core heraldic forms to outsiders, ciphered glyph forms of unknown meaning, and the award of symbolic keys to this legionary as recognition of some onerous duty successfully discharged.
But
so yeah, this guy has a lot of stuff on him.
He does. Yeah. He's wearing a lot of decorations.
So starting with his chest, you have the Deathwing, cross swords. Behind the swords is the Star of the Hexagrammaton.
Oh, wow. I didn't even see that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what else he's got, Jesse?
What's that?
He's got some fucking keys, dude.
He does have some keys.
He's got some keys, dude.
Yep. So he can probably unlock some fun stuff at some point.
Oh, shit. I just noticed that.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good.
They say in this book it mentions they're symbolic keys, but now we know
It opens up the water closet.
there's
on
probably
the,
a good chance. Yeah.
I wonder if those keys are the same keys that we got in a little bit of a sneak peek here, a little bit of a release.
I mean, it's Got
That's
some
cool. That's a
keys.
cool theme, though, man.
It really is.
I like that.
So you also have you have on his right leg, on our left, a 1 and a 3, probably a 13, assuming he's from the 13th chapter.
Yeah.
Which is funny because if you go over back to 72 and look at the Lance Decurian's shoulder pad with the 62 on his shoulder pad on the left, if you look up, it says 52nd chapter. I don't know if that's a typo or not, or it's just some more Dark Angel shenanigans.
All right.
No, you're right.
Subtract by 10, boys.
No, wait. What are you saying on the page 72?
Yep. So if you look at the top, it says that he is part of the 52nd chapter of the first host.
Yeah.
I look down at the
I don't
bottom.
look it down the bottom. It says 62 on his shoulder pad.
God, it's got to be a typo.
I think it's a typo.
Got to be a typo, man.
Not a huge deal, but kind of funny. Then you also have back to the Terminator, on his left, our right knee pad, you have a red star, white circle, and what looks like a DW, which I'm assuming stands for Deathwing. Pretty on the nose.
Definitely.
And a 3 in there, which I'm assuming probably means third host, if I had to guess.
Now you're really good at this.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all the iconography that really means anything right now.
Cool.
So we'll see how much this differs, because this was written, book 6 was what, 3 years ago? Almost 4 years ago?
Quick, go to the published date.
I want to say.
I think I started this 4
I mean,
years,
that sounds about right.
because I think I started playing Dark Angels and had these little rules that I've been living with for 4 years now.
Yeah, because you were playing Dark Angels when Jason was like, "Hey, why don't you play Sons of Horus?" And that was
It's been my first
3 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. So
It's been my baby. And let's see, looking at copyright, there's no number for the copyright, which is interesting.
It is weird. I want to say it's like at least 3 or 4 years ago, though.
I'm sure if you looked at the ISBN, if you
Yeah,
bother to look at that,
you'd
you'd
find it.
Not a huge
Find it.
deal. Like I said, I had this when I first started, so I think it's like 4 or 5 years.
So that's the challenge to the listeners this episode. Figure out when the book was released.
But yeah, that pretty much covers the 2 Dark Angel characters in this novel, in this book.
So Jesse, does that sync with what we know about Book 9? I mean, so far?
What little we know of, yeah, I'd
Yeah?
say so.
Okay, cool.
Which, like I said, there hasn't been a huge amount of lore given yet. I will say, now I think about the Deathwing Companions, which are new models that are come out. They introduced the bone white armor, and as
Is
part
that
of
the
their
new
fluff-
command squad kind of looking
Yeah.
thing that
Yeah.
came out? Okay.
And they mentioned that the bone white armor comes from them intervening and blocking death blows to their charge. Like whoever they're protecting, if they prevent or intervene from a death dealing blow, they receive bone white armor as part of their recognition.
Very cool.
That being said, I don't see any bone white on this guy's Terminator armor.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll see some of that soon.
So I think it's just part like increasing of the fluff and adding on to it. Not being a Deathwing, not having bone white armor isn't necessarily a fluff issue at all.
Right.
He could have just gotten started out.
Certainly not in the where we are in the Heresy, right?
That's
Oh,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very little would be interfering with the Space Marines at that point.
Cool.
So yeah, that's that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, Jesse, so much for being on and being a guest lecturer on the Heresy Grad School.
Thanks for hosting us in the
Bowels of the
Yeah.
Vengeful Spirit,
Absolutely.
where the beer flows freely and the...
So what other little minor spoilers did I give to you guys today? What did I say on the cast in Lionel Johnson's Primarch novel?
talk about their keys, unlocking.
I mentioned about the interactions with the Mechanicum.
Yeah, and that if the Mechanicum ever rose up, they'd have to deal with the Dark Angels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I think that's about
Give us
it.
one more spoiler.
Yeah.
Give us one more spoiler.
So this might be I'll bring it here in a second. So a little sneak peek of what the Lion may have as far as war gear
Yeah.
for his model. He has a lion sword, of course, and I'm going to find it here in a second. Talk amongst yourselves, because I will find it. Here we go. So his weapon, his ranged weapon, is called the Fusil Actinaeus.
Oh, yeah.
Your mom's a Fusil Actinaeus.
And they put it in italics, so you know that it's serious business.
Right.
Every time I mention it, it's Fusil Actinaeus.
Oh, yeah. In italics.
And a quick snippet of what he's doing with it. For a split nanosecond, a blue-white ribbon of plasma connected each of the Fusil Actinaeus' twin barrels to the puppet captain, before a sunfire explosion incinerated a man-sized sphere of the hallway. Armor glass flashed brittle and shattered. Rock ran like promethium. Tapestries disappeared like so much smoke. With its origins in the dark years of old Earth, the Fusil Actinaeus' destructive capabilities far exceeded the modern plasma weapons mass-produced by the Forges of Mars.
So I'm gonna pull a parallel from a different Primarch's weapon, the Lantern from Mortarion. Wow, I had blank there. Sorry. And like the description of it, and it's either like book 2 or book 3. I want to think. Actually, no, it's Flight of the Eisenstein, because there's the whole them fighting and like the Sisters of Silence being there as well before all of the shenanigans of Istvan happened. And it's described as like just a beam of light that goes across distances and just scours the land, kind of thing. So yeah.
So yeah, I talked with Austin and Carol the other day about this on our little side episode we were doing. I think if I had to guess from that description, he's probably toting around some sort of handheld plasma cannon.
Yeah.
It's about a sphere, so it's probably it's better than most plasma weaponry. Probably strength 8, AP 2, small blast, assault 2. I don't know. It mentions it has twin barrels, but I doubt it's twin linked. I'd imagine it'd have more than a single shot.
Mastercrafted, maybe.
Mastercrafted.
Yeah.
Assault 2. Just fun to think about. But like I said, this book also does mention the Cenobites and the Interruptors, which are the new models that came out. So I'm looking and trying to scour and see what other type of hints that they're dropping of what models and war gear I can look forward to seeing. So pretty cool.
No, we're all in here, guys. So the Remembrancers Retreat, in addition to talking about the Black Books and the new releases and sort of lore rabbit holes, Caro, I think, is going to be starting another series, which is going to be Heresy Book Club. So keep your eyes out for that, because it's going to be really fun.
Coming soon.
Soon. You'll be able to sort of...
In the GW sense. But it's coming.
Yeah, and so I think it'll be fun, because book clubs are fun, and being able to read along and then listen to and have some, people to ping things off of is always good.
And Carol travels often, and she's always bringing the books with her on flights and stuff. So she's
definitely
she probably knows the books better than I do at this point. And
yeah,
in all seriousness,
very cool, man.
But Jesse, again, thank you so much for being on, man. Thank you for hosting us.
Not a problem.
I think real quick we're gonna do plugs. Dave, you got anybody?
I do. I talked a little bit about this last time, but I think Jesse's going to help me out on this. We have our first sort of official sponsor of the Heresy Grad School and the Remembrancers Retreat. Jesse, I can't say this. Feldherr
phone.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very cool. They've reached out, and we've sort of reached out, and right now it's a €5 discount. Anybody can use it multiple times, and if you guys use it and you show them that you listen and you like their stuff, maybe we can get you one better.
I think it's like €5 off of 30 or something like that.
€5 off of €50 or more. So 10% if you use the minimum.
Still, most of us are going to be buying big cases, so it works out.
And that promo code is Heresy 2020.
Very
use
cool.
the promo code Heresy 2020 on the Feldherr website. There are European, so our European listeners probably get pretty good at.
Yeah, that'd be a great
effect
deal
out of this,
because they get free shipping as well.
Yeah, on a lot of things.
Well, I think in Europe, Feldherr will ship for free, so that's just a €5 discount for you guys. At least the way I understand it. So very cool.
Depending on where you are in Europe and how much you order.
Okay.
And they're based off of Germany, so the closer you are to Germany, the cheaper you spend to get that free shipping.
Cool.
But yeah.
Jesse, you got anybody?
I mean, nothing necessary, but I have the whole spiel that I give out at the end of every episode. I don't know if you guys do it or not.
We're not as religious, but
Okay. Well, now that you're here in the vengeful spirit, we're going to do this.
we're going to do it right, damn it.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this episode. If you like this content and want to support us, you can consider becoming a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/RR30K podcast. You can sign up, become one of our members. We'll give you Teespring discounts, fun swag every periodically. You get to vote on upcoming Horus Heresy grad school topics. I'd like to thank our praetors: Alex Self, Chris Mack, Jacob Dillon, Gardner.Tree of Woe, Jason Tick, Joe from Music City Heresy, Josh Phillips, and Matthew Boyce. Thank you all so much. These are our top tier patrons, and we definitely appreciate it. Coming up with our Centurions, we have Andrew N., Angry Boy, Black Label Painting, Derek Knoll, John Christensen, M. Hernandez, Mark Henry, Minis by Applesauce, and Fortnite. Again, thank you all so much. And our Legion Sergeants, Aaron Maynard, Duncan, Emily O'Hare, Garrett Lowe, and Travis Smith. Again, thank you to everyone who becomes a patron. We sincerely appreciate it. And when we hit 25 patrons, we're going to have a Saber Tank giveaway.
Wow. How close are we to that right now?
We are at
Jason?
22 patrons.
Yeah, we just
Three
need
more.
3 more. Yeah.
It is nuts. Again, thank you all so much. And again, you can check out our phone line if you want to leave a voicemail at 1-929-HERESY-1. That's 1-929-437-3791. Also be sure to check out rr30k.com for our website. You can follow us on Instagram at Remembrancers Retreat, on Facebook and Twitter at RR30K Podcast. And that's everything I have.
Yeah. Jason, you got anything?
So, not plugs so much as things you should probably go check out. The two things I was pulling info from for the Dark Angel hosts earlier. First off, Angels of Caliban by Gav Thorpe. I know some folks think he's a little hit or miss. I'll give you that. But Angels of Caliban is a pretty deep lore bomb. Mm-hmm. And then, fun fact, I think this was probably for the release of the Dark Angels Codex in 7th edition. But in December of 2017, Games Workshop, it's still on the Warhammer community page, put out this pretty neat article called The Secret Orders of the Dark Angels.
That's the one that...
That Dave was taking a look at.
Yep.
Yeah. It's good
Fun
stuff.
little thing.
Yeah.
So check those two things out.
And Jesse beat me to my plug, but if you guys really enjoy everything we do, please
I'm sorry. I just
patron
get
to
into
us.
it.
No. Definitely more professional than I. Here, let me reread it.
Yeah.
No, but no. Thank you everyone for listening, whether you're a patron or not. We love doing this, and I guess you guys love hearing our voices. So thanks again. And because we're in the bowels of the vengeful spirit, I can't tell Craig to fuck off. It's real sad.
It's true.
Yeah. Well.
All right, guys. We'll be back next time with the final conclusion of the Xana incursion, lesson 6. So come back and join us. See you next time.
Final episode. So good. Have a good night, everybody.